I paid $9,000 for an abandoned cabin nobody wanted. 3 weeks later, a woman from the Homeowners Association stood in my driveway and told me I didn't own it. They did. But when I pulled the original 1962 paperwork, one name stopped her cold. My own last name. Before we go any further, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your country in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories reach. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your last chance. Hit that subscribe button now, because the next story only gets crazier from here. I found the cabin on an online auction site buried 3 pages deep under listings nobody clicks on. 90 acres, a half-collapsed roof, and a starting bid of $9,000. The photos looked like something out of a horror movie. Vines swallowing the porch, a front door hanging on one hinge. But something about it pulled me in. I placed the bid at midnight, half joking with myself that I'd never win it. I won it in 4 days. When I drove out to see it in person, the road leading up wasn't even on my GPS. I had to follow a hand-painted wooden sign that just said "Private No Trespassing," which felt ironic since I now legally owned the place. The cabin itself was worse than the photos. But standing on that porch, looking out at the tree line, I felt something I can only describe as recognition. Like I'd been there before. I didn't know yet that this feeling wasn't a coincidence. I didn't know how deep this went. But I was about to find out. The renovation started. Simple new roof, cleared brush, replaced the rotted porch steps. But within the first week, I noticed a truck slowing down at the end of the driveway almost every evening, never stopping, just watching. Then the letter came. No stamp, no return address, just shoved into my mailbox. It was from something called Pinecrest Ridge H.O.A., a name I had never once seen on my deed, my title search, or my closing documents. The letter claimed my property fell under their jurisdiction and that unauthorized construction needed to cease immediately. I remember laughing it off. I figured it was a mistake, some outdated paperwork from a neighborhood that didn't even exist anymore. I was wrong, and I'd find that out sooner than I wanted to. 2 days later, a woman in a blazer that looked far too formal for a dirt road knocked on my door. She introduced herself as the president of the Pinecrest Ridge H.O.A. and told me, flatly, that the cabin and the land beneath it were under association control and that my purchase was invalid. I asked her calmly how an HOA could own a property that was sold to me through a public auction with a clean title. She said the details were complicated and that her organization had historical rights to the land dating back decades. Historical rights. Those 2 words stuck with me. She left a folder of documents on my porch railing and told me I had 30 days to vacate or face legal action. 30 days to leave a cabin I had legally bought, renovated, and already started calling home. That night I sat at my kitchen table and opened that folder. And buried on page 14 in faded typewriter font was a name that made my stomach drop. I wasn't ready for what I was about to read. The next morning I drove straight to the county records office. I wanted to see the original chain of title every owner this land had ever had, going back as far as the archives allowed. The clerk pulled a dusty folder that hadn't been touched in years. Most of the records were exactly what I expected: boring transfers, tax updates, a few decades of nothing. But there was a gap, a 6-year stretch in the 1960s where no deed transfer existed at all. As if the land had just paused, I asked the clerk if that was normal. She shook her head and said gaps like that usually meant either a lost record or a dispute that was never formally settled in the county system. A dispute. That word lit something up in my brain. I went back to the HOA's folder that night, back to that faded typewriter page. And this time I read the full name attached to it, not just a last name, but a full legal signature from 1962. My hands were shaking before I even finished reading it. The name on that 1962 document was Harold Whitfield. My last name. Not a coincidence of spelling an exact match. Right down to the middle initial that ran in my family for 3 generations. I called my father that night, practically shouting into the phone, asking if the name Harold meant anything to him. There was a long pause. Then he said, quietly, That was your great-grandfather. According to my father, Harold Whitfield had once owned a large stretch of land in that exact county before a dispute with some local landowners forced the family off the property in the 60s. Nobody in the family ever talked about it. It was treated like an old wound nobody wanted to reopen. But here's the twist that changed everything. The original 1962 deed wasn't a sale. It was a lease, a 99-year lease Harold Whitfield had signed with a group of local landowners who would later rebrand themselves as the Pinecrest Ridge HOA. A lease meant one thing they never expected. The land was never actually theirs to control forever. It meant the land was scheduled to fully revert back to the Whitfield family line in 2026. This year, the same year I, a Whitfield by blood, without even knowing it, bought this exact cabin at auction. I brought everything to a real estate attorney the very next morning, the auction paperwork, the county gap in records, and the 1962 lease with my great-grandfather's signature. She confirmed what I was starting to believe. The lease had an ironclad reversion clause. After 99 years, if no formal renewal was filed, ownership returned automatically to the original family line or their legal descendants. The H.O.A. had never filed a renewal, not once in 60 years. We requested a formal meeting with the H.O.A. board, and I brought the attorney with me. The same woman who once stood on my porch in her blazer now sat across a conference table. Visibly uncomfortable as my attorney laid out the 1962 lease, the missing renewal filings, and the direct bloodline connection between Harold Whitfield and me. The room went silent. She tried to argue historical rights again, the same phrase from before. But this time, my attorney calmly reminded her that historical rights don't override a legally binding reversion clause that the association itself failed to renew. For the first time since this whole ordeal started, I watched her lose her composure completely. She quietly asked for a recess. That recess lasted 3 weeks. And when they came back, they didn't come back with a fight. They came back with a settlement offer. The H.O.A. agreed to drop all claims to the property, formally acknowledging in writing that the land, my land, reverted fully to the Whitfield family line as outlined in the original 1962 lease. Just like that, the 90-acre property my great-grandfather lost decades ago was legally, permanently mine. I still think about that first day on the porch, that strange feeling of recognition I couldn't explain. I know now it wasn't random. Some part of that land remembered my family before I ever did. The cabin is fully renovated now. I sit on that same porch most evenings looking out at the same tree line Harold Whitfield probably once stood in front of, wondering if he ever imagined his name would come back 60 years later to reclaim what was always meant to stay in the family. Some inheritances don't come in a will. Some come in a deed nobody ever bothered to read.